we're going to press on. We're spot on time, and I'm delighted to introduce to you Fari Diner, who's the CEO of Plume and a big sponsor of our event this time again. So Fari, please come on up here and join the fun. Great to have you, sir. Great to see you.
Thanks for having me. Okay, well, Klaus and the team here, thank you very much again for having me. I think I last spoke at the Washington, D.C. event. I have a bit of a different angle today. We spoke the Wi-Fi Alliance perspective, which is really from an industry alliance perspective. Gavin talked about what a tier one operator like Liberty Global might be doing. First, I have to say, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, and my company is drinking the Wi-Fi Kool-Aid. But I would submit to you that Wi-Fi, at least in the context of residential smart home services, is the starting point. It's not the end game. We, at least from our perspective, see Wi-Fi as the infrastructure or the network inside the home. And I'll talk about it a little bit, but we think the name of the game moving forward is how to offer new services and new applications and new experiences inside the home. We've talked throughout the last, 10, 20, 30 years about the feeds and speeds and connectivity, but I think the game is changing. So I want to give you that perspective. In that, I'm going to talk about something called OpenSync. I'm going to take a guess and make an assertion as a starting point. My guess is more people in this room probably don't know about OpenSync or what it is and what it does. That's my guess. My assertion is that OpenSync is probably more relevant to people in this room than any other open source initiative. So I kind of gave you a little bit of a clue as to what it is. It all has to do with open source. And from a Plume perspective, as everything sort of comes together in terms of smart home services in the home, what we are trying to do is find ways to scale now. We think the timing is now, and enable our service provider customers to do it fast. So those are kind of the overall intent. Which button do I push? I'll push one of them. Okay, I spoke about this a little bit back in Washington, D.C. Here is what we see in terms of the need of the consumer. Back in the 90s, when we first, 1999, let's say, with initial Wi-Fi and so on, the need of the consumer was around connectivity. We just wanted to be connected in the home. I'm taking more of a residential perspective. And it was driven by productivity. We just wanted to work from home. We had our big computers, and it was all about getting connected. Dial-up connections and so on. I will sort of admit my age, but back in the 90s, that was kind of the big driver. Then we moved into this phase where the need of the consumer moved towards performance. That's been driven by entertainment, social, feeds and speeds, bigger and bigger pipes, faster broadband connections. So I might argue that we're sort of still in that phase. Gavin talked about 1 gig rollouts, 10 gig is coming at some point. I would submit, however, that in the broadband connectivity race, as the pipes get bigger and bigger, a lot of the differentiation might very well, among the operators, be the price of that connectivity. A lot of people do it reliably, a lot of people do it well. And that is not, when the price becomes the differentiation of your product, it's usually not a good thing. So our view is people really need to move inside the home, and inside the home, the driver is around personalization. It's about these cross-device experiences. My view is bits will come one way or the other to the home. It's about what you're doing inside the home, what kind of experiences you're creating for the consumer and how you're monetizing that. That provides additional ARPU. that provide stickiness because you're offering more and more services to your customer, and hopefully that reduces churn. So those are the drivers that we see. In terms of the overall dynamic, this is an observation we've made when we first started our company about 4 or 5 years ago, is that connectivity to the home, the pipes to the home, and services in the home are starting to decouple from each other. In other words, you don't really have to be the provider of the pipe to the home in order to offer services inside the home. And when I talk to guys like Gavin in my sort of customer base, when they want to roll out a new service, we often sit down and one of the first things we discuss is, I love this service, my marketing people want to make it available across the base, but we have these, Aris boxes that uses Qualcomm silicon and an Intel processor. Oh, I've got some other Technicolor box that uses Broadcom processor and Broadcom silicon. Can we make it first? Can we make it work first in this box and then move to here and so on? So we're trying to sort of eliminate that dialogue. And to do that is to create a middle layer that is open, that is standard, and that is deployed across all of the CPEs in the home to help decouple the services from the pipe and from the hardware so that you can scale. I think the winners in this space will be determined by their ability to take new services and applications to market fast. Time to market is a key driver for us. And that's what we said from the beginning, and I'm sticking to it. So we want our service providers to offer these smart home services in the home now, do it fast, and do it at scale. That's the first intent. We also wanted to unify through a common data set. There's a lot of data collected, but offering an awesome consumer experience in the home is not only about the front-end services that the consumer sees. It is just as important what you do when people call you from a support and operations perspective. In the US, I have broadband connection from one of the major providers. Their products are great. I don't like them. Not because of the value, not because of what they provide to me in terms of the service. I don't like them because when I call them, they ask me my name and my phone number and account number, yada, yada. I explain my problem, and they say, well, Mr. Diner, I can't help you with that. I'm going to transfer you to some other department. Some nice lady picks up the phone and asks me my phone number and account number and yada, yada, again and again and again, and I have to explain. They don't know anything about me, relatively speaking. So not only you have to offer, in order to offer this awesome consumer experience, our view is you got to offer an exciting set of front-end services you may or you may not monetize, but from an operational and support perspective, you have to know your customer very, very well. And that means you have to tap into the same data set that not only feeds these services and provide these cross-device experiences, but also feed your ops and support teams. It's the same data that you have to see, and believe it or not, many operators don't see that today, at least the ones that we're talking to. Scale. I talked about it a little bit last time. We realized it. We have a lot of scars in this as well. The boys and men are separated when it comes to scale. Deploying something in 1,000 homes is different than 10,000 homes, very different than 1 million homes, and I would submit to you, very, very different than 10 million homes and going to 100 million homes. Everything is connected to the cloud. The magic all happens in the cloud. That's kind of the switchboard, not only for curation, provisioning, delivery, fixing, supporting of services, but also from an overall sort of operations perspective. Scaling the cloud, Gavin will tell me, it has not been easy. But oftentimes in the industry, people want to be first to market. Yeah, that's good, but first to scale, at least in our world, is what really matters. So that's part of the intent. You want to offer these distinctive experiences. Again, I am looking for a day where we don't talk about gigabits and gigabytes and megabits and megabytes. It's irrelevant to the consumer. Once you get to 1 gig, 10 gig, or what have you, it's about what they do for me rather than what it is. And I'm looking for a day where our service provider customers are not differentiating through the size of the pipe. It's about these experiences inside the home. It's a very different approach. It requires a lot of knowledge, intelligence, back-end systems, and so on. We're redesigning our website at Plume right now. It'll probably be ready in 2 to 3 months or so. I told my people I don't want the website to use megabits per second, gigabits per second, gigabytes and megabytes. So maybe you can help me when the Plume website is ready, do a search on it. Other than maybe some technical specs of some hardware or something like that, I've told the marketing people, do not have those. We don't need them. Yeah, we don't need them. Nobody cares. Sort of like I have my power company in California is PG&E. They bring me the electrons to the home. I have never worried about the size of my pipe, how many watts and amps and yada yada it has. All I want to worry about is I plug in whatever I plug in, there's enough. You ought to be able to enjoy whatever experience, whatever service. The broadband should be a variable. Yeah, it should, like whoever is providing you the service either brings it or will make sure that you have whatever you need. It's a different view. We've all been sort of trained. It's all about sort of testosterone, megabits, megabytes, gigabits. So we're trying to move towards experiences, and I really mean this. And it's a very different approach. And then the main topic today is we want to adopt an open platform approach in order to scale Wi-Fi Alliance, these standards. Fantastic. Okay, 4 billion new devices are hitting every year. That's going to be 6 billion, 8 billion, 10 billion. Scale is the one word that I'd like you to walk away from. And this open platform approach, we think, is the answer to it. Let me talk about OpenSync. It's an open source initiative. This is something we announced a year ago, exactly a year ago, at the Broadband World Forum in Berlin. It's 1 year old, and I have to tell you, it's probably the fastest growing open source initiative that is relevant to people in this room today. Probably is not the biggest today, but if I were to be lucky enough, maybe in a year from now, to speak here again, I'm guessing I will probably be able to say it's the biggest. What is it? It's a complete framework. We call it silicon to cloud or silicon to service framework. It's not just some middle layer. There are other initiatives, which I'll talk about, that we can build on top of. It's intended to provide these awesome experiences in the home. The trunk of the tree often is the silicon and processor platforms, and then the switchboard, where all the magic happens, is the cloud. OpenSync is trying to create an open, free sort of framework that anybody can access to build these awesome, to build cloud control planes and have device-level products that are compatible with that cloud. So think of it as the SIM card that connects the devices to the cloud. Yeah. Bit of a history. We developed this inside Plume in 2015. It used to be called Plume Middle Layer. We commercialized it in the form of these little pods. We make these little extenders. We call them pods. About a year later, then we open sourced it as part of the RDK stack. RDK is largely used by the cable industry, but it's expanding beyond that. And then about a year ago, we said, you know what, it needs to go across the board. So when we announced it back in October 2018, the reaction to it was sort of in 3 phases. First, people were confused, said, what is this? How does it compare to this and that or the other? There was a bit of a confusion. We explained what it is, and then people said, you're up to something. You're trying to pull my leg. They kind of didn't trust it first, and then we explained, look, it's open, it's free, and we've also, PML used to only speak to the Plume cloud. OpenSync speaks to the Plume cloud. We use OpenSync now to do all the magic we do on the cloud, but it can also speak to anybody's cloud. You could build your own cloud. You could take OpenSync, put it into your boxes, or if you want to be a cloud services provider, take OpenSync, build a cloud, and you can compete with me. You can go to Gavin and say, hey, I think I have a better cloud than Plume, and try to convince him to pay attention to you. So it's open. Let me give you some of the recent momentum, and then I'll give you the big view. A month ago, this organization called NCTC, National Cable Television Consortium in the US and in Canada, adopted OpenSync. They represent about 750 very small operators in the US and Canada. Some of their members have started deploying already, like Armstrong Cable and others. 10 days ago, JCOM, the largest MSO in Japan, announced that they're now offering services to their customers using OpenSync. Yesterday, Charter, the second largest ISP in the US, announced that they have adopted OpenSync. And in fact, the way Charter has adopted OpenSync probably is the most modern out of everyone else that we've seen. They've adopted OpenSync from soup to nuts. They don't even use TR69 and other ACS technologies. It's modern, it's fast, and they've already started rolling out services. They announced Austin. They're expanding to Southern California, and it's going to be nationwide in not too distant future. That was yesterday. 1 hour ago, Sunrise in Switzerland announced that they've adopted OpenSync to launch a set of in-home services. And I'm going to kind of leak some news, I think maybe a day or so from now. VOO in Belgium, hopefully they won't get mad at me for sort of leaking. I figured I can't do too much damage if it's just one day before. We'll be announcing that they've launched services using OpenSync. So that's some of the very recent momentum. In the bigger picture, we have top 2 operators in the US, Comcast and Charter now, are using OpenSync to roll out various services. 3 out of the top 4 in Canada, Bell Canada, Rogers, and Shaw, are also using OpenSync. Liberty Global and Vodafone in Europe are the 2 largest operators, and then I just mentioned some of the smaller ones, and more will be coming. And JCOM we talked about. In terms of independence, we, at least this is a Plume term, our customers that have less than 1 million or so broadband subs, we put them in at least for our purposes, in a different bucket. So Armstrong Cable is a member of NCTC, about 250,000 subs. They're bundling the smart home service as part of their broadband. So every single Armstrong customer that gets broadband gets the entire smart home bundle. That includes AI security, that includes advanced parental controls, that includes adaptive Wi-Fi, the super duper fast, reliable, consistent Wi-Fi in every corner of the home. And there are more and more services that we're going to be pushing into that. So you don't opt in anymore. And it also comes with 2 SuperPods as extenders. It's 100%. And I think this is a dynamic that we're going to see. A lot of our service provider customers are saying, hey, my competitor brings broadband to the home. I bring broadband to every room, to every device consistently all of the time. So that's, I would, certainly from our perspective, we would like to see that. But then you're just getting started. Now you've got internet effectively in every corner of the home all of the time consistently. Now you say, okay, now the game starts. What else can I offer to you to delight you with these experiences so that you'll stick with me? Samsung, their IoT, SmartThings, Wi-Fi, IoT ecosystem is powered by OpenSync. We announced it together about a year ago, and they're scaling pretty nicely. They're in a number of countries, and we're going to see more and more retail relationships. Now, in an open source initiative, beyond adoption, what you're also looking for is contribution. So there's a BSD3 license attached to OpenSync. You can take it, you can modify it. If you so wish, you can contribute it back to the community. And a lot of our sort of service provider customers, people that we partner with on the CPE side and otherwise are taking OpenSync and they're modifying it. Some of them may contribute, some of them may not. Charter talked about it a little bit. There's going to be a lot more detail about it. They're adding their contribution to OpenSync will be this Apple HomeKit support. Liberty Global, our friends at Liberty Global have fixed a lot of things. So thank you for that. But that's the intent, whether it's on the WAN side or otherwise. Some CPE manufacturers like Sajam, Comstor, ComCIG, they're adding target layers, they're adding various managers. Very important on the silicon side. These three silicon suppliers are now offering OpenSync as a standard, pre-integrated in some cases, and supported part of their platforms. That is a big deal. So our view at some point is if you have these modern silicon platforms, we shouldn't have to talk about adding it after the fact. Symantec is putting some enhancements. Cable Labs are working on some others. And Cognitive, I think Taj might be here. These guys are doing some very interesting work in motion detection. They're going to use it initially for presence detection in the home. We will offer it as part of our bundle as well, and they're contributing those elements. And there are many, many more. And then the compatibility. You can build OpenSync if you're using RDK. You can build OpenSync on top of RDK. It's not a replacement. If you want to go towards more of an OpenWRT-based approach, you can build OpenSync on top of that. Or you can use OpenSync natively from soup to nuts. Sort of, I think Bill, our CTO, who's sitting here, said it. It's a one-year-old who plays nice with others. And of course, it talks to multiple clouds. So the Plume cloud today does a lot of the things that are mentioned here. But many of our service provider customers, particularly the large ones, when I go to them and say, look, I'm going to help unshackle you from your box vendors so you can offer these services across any box. So just start with OpenSync connected to our cloud or to your cloud. They said, yeah, well, that sounds great. I really love that approach, but it sounds like you're going to turn around and shackle me straight to Plume. That wasn't the intent. That's the reason we opened the interfaces from OpenSync to anybody's cloud. Sometimes people, our service provider customers say, yeah, I'm using the Plume cloud. I like it. You guys are doing some innovative work. But what if? What if Plume gets acquired by some enemy of mine, right? I don't want them to be in my shorts. So we say interfaces are open, and if you can do these things on your own, and many of our service providers are capable. So it's truly an open initiative, and we're sort of putting our money where our mouth is, as they say. Plume wants to be the choice. We want our service provider customers to select us to do this magic on the cloud, but they don't have to with OpenSync. From a platform perspective, what does it enable? We think there are these front-end services that you have to enable. Yes. You need to enable support and ops functionality. It needs to plug into the same data set. And you have to provide insights and continue to learn. A lot of the support functions, for example, we're doing now, which is very, very interesting. From some of our customers, we ingest their call-in rates and truck rolls and so on. We know the performance in the home. And we correlate these, and we're now able to actually predict, to say that home, and that home, they're going to call you in the next 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days. Those insights are very important. Many of our service provider customers are obsessed with call-in rates and truck rolls and all of that, which usually means significant amount of OpEx. But more importantly, it's indicating some level of dissatisfaction. Churn probably is the most expensive thing that can happen to you in any subscription business. So the OpenSync-based platform really is sort of three-sided, if you will. It enables all three of these elements. And in terms of the scale, all of the customers that are using OpenSync see something like 60 petabytes of data. We've ingested about 722 terabytes of telemetry data. And then, we've done over the last year some over 4 billion optimizations and caught security events, et cetera. And the interesting thing here is look at the number of devices. There's about 450 million devices we've seen. They're not 100% active simultaneously. Maybe 60% of those might be active at any given time. And that's currently spread across about 12, 13 million homes. So you can do the math in terms of the Wi-Fi device per home. It's like 20s. Now, maybe that's not the global average. I admit that we're concentrated in North America and Europe. Particularly in North America, the numbers might be a little more skewed, but that still gives you a sense. We're past 20, 25, and I think that's going to be 50 or more the way we see it. There are some of the other people, the smart people from Plume are actually here, who have invented this. I just have to come up with ideas, and I'm lucky that in our company there are many people that are a lot smarter than I am who actually figure this stuff out. We've been holding these open source OpenSync academies. You can think of it as a developer conference. We've had 10 sessions so far. 29 companies attended so far. Over 150 engineers have been trained. And they downloaded and lots of code. So we would invite anybody in the industry. You may think you're competing with Plume, or you're on the, let's say, the silicon side, or device side, or CPE side. It's good for all of us. So we'd like you to join this movement. Then these are some of the cool guys from Plume. So if you join, maybe your photo will be here. So anyway, that's OpenSync. Hopefully it was helpful. It's growing very fast, and remember, it's not ours anymore. We used to monetize the Plume middle layer. OpenSync is free. It's downloadable. OpenSync.io is where you go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Far, for coming. Amazing progress in just 1 year. It's absolutely staggering. Any questions for Far? There's a question there from Sami.
Hi there. Thank you. Great presentation. My name is Sami Susia from Sky. Given that you are really focused on mesh, what do you think about open mesh? Are you planning to adopt that? Is that in your product? I'm not sure if or easy mesh, as it's called.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of cut our teeth in what we call adaptive Wi-Fi and mesh and so on. I wouldn't say the company's focus is mesh. I think that story is almost over. Yes, we need reliable, consistent, fast coverage in every corner of the home. There are other standards like Easy Mesh and so on. We see them as target layers that plug right into OpenSync. So it's really intended to standardize the way the silicon, Broadcom, Qualcomm, Intel, Quantenna, what have you, in order to get the parameters and read what we need from them. So far, we've had to create our own target layers, and some of our box sort of CPE supplier partners have worked with them. But Easy Mesh, et cetera, we see that as a fantastic sort of standardization of that should plug right in. Remember, the OpenSync is intended to be bigger than just mesh, right? It's a complete framework. So all of those are great. We're supportive of it. Easy Mesh, there's, I think, release 1 and release 2, and we're supporting those, and we intend to, go deeper there.
There's a question there.
Hi, Fari. Great presentation, and I was one of the lucky ones to be in Washington, D.C. when you presented I think it was Mother's Day.
Mother's Day.
Mother's Day.
Yes.
That's right.
So it was very fascinating. Question I have for you is that if I listen to you, it sorts of gears towards the home application. So I wanted to understand how in the enterprise space, anybody has looked into what you can offer through your open source, OpenSync, and any data that you're able to share. By the way, my name is Abu Islam. I'm with Spire Communication.
I have no data to share regarding enterprise. We haven't done anything. Our focus largely is residential today. Next year, we will be expanding into these, what we call small business or SOHO. Think of it as 10 employees, 20 employees, an enterprise or a business that doesn't have an IT guy. Think of it that way. There, the solution, the front-end service bundle will be similar but different. People want, obviously, Wi-Fi coverage, yada, yada. They want security. They want an LTE backup. But it will be built on OpenSync. But we're not, at least at the moment, we're not trying to address the medium, large enterprises and campuses and so on. So think of it as this initiative for the time being is intended for those applications, whether in the home or small business, where there's no IT person, if you think of it that way. So I have no data to share because we haven't done any deployments.
Any last question for? There's one more there. Yeah, go for it.
Hi, Volker from Icotera. You said personalization will be the next differentiator, right? Can you give some example? What do you mean with that?
Yeah. People want these, just think of, let's say, as I mentioned, the people who want to compete in the home now are not only the service providers. So you have, let's say, Google, Amazon, and these guys are trying to come, Apple, they're trying to come over the top, and they want to land in the home with some piece of hardware. The hardware that they're landing in the home with is the smart speaker, right? They're trying to kind of use that to start connecting devices to each other, protocols, whether it's IoT related or otherwise, where this action in the home triggers some other action. That's what I mean. So these kind of the modern internet companies are coming over the top with that. The ISP community has this massive unfair advantage in terms of controlling the router. They're already in the home. There are about 1.1 billion homes with broadband connectivity in the home, right? So we're kind of helping those launch these services off of the router, if you will, or using that as the landing point in the home. So in terms of personalization, yeah, I mean, that's kind of, I want my devices to be talking to each other. I want my internet experience, and for example, in the case of adaptive Wi-Fi, we know after watching the home for a while that maybe Sunday night, everybody, the family may be getting together in the living room. There's a lot of load in the living room to watch the favorite football game or what have you. We pre-configure the network to make sure that that room has a lot of capacity allocated to it by way of backhaul, for example. So that's part of personalization, cross-device experiences and so on. So I think that's where all I can say, as I mentioned many times, is people want experiences in the home rather than connectivity, or in addition to connectivity and fast speeds and reliability.
It's great to have you here, Fari, because it's always a joy to speak to you because you're a visionary, because you have these ideas. And I think, for us at Wi-Fi Now, innovation and opportunity go hand in hand. And with the vision on top of that, I think is absolutely fantastic. And we really think you're doing amazing work.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Any last question for Fari? There's one there.
So just building on that personalization, sounds great. In the home, I can turn on parental filters, all managed in the cloud. What about when I move to the mobile network and that's not the same supplier? Is through OpenSync or any other means? Do you have any ideas to share that with?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're going to talk about that next year. There are some initiatives that I can't announce at this point. The only thing I'll say is we see the Plume cloud or this cloud environment not only being a control point for the unlicensed spectrum, which is largely Wi-Fi today. Nirvana is that cloud control plane can look across both the licensed and unlicensed spectrum. Yeah. The reason is on the licensed spectrum side, it's great, 5G is coming, et cetera. It is not free. And as we talked about, a lot of that traffic does and need to continue to fly off of the wireless network. But just from a handoff perspective, for example, my phone today makes the decision for handoff. Whenever it sees a Wi-Fi network at Starbucks or what have you, it connects, but a lot of the time it shouldn't, because that network is not reliable. So and there are many other applications where when you talk about these experiences, you might be offering a parental control service over a mobile network, but you come home, you connect to Wi-Fi, poof, it goes away. So long way of saying this control plane is expanding to look across both the licensed and unlicensed spectrum, and there are many, many use cases for that. We will probably start, you don't want to boil the ocean. These kind of connection manager might be one application, but there's more coming on top of that.
Very quick one, Dean. You can shout. Oh, sorry, there was a gentleman, other gentleman? Yeah, go for it.
Hi, Luca Spada from Eolo, Italy. Are you going to introduce in OpenSync support for IoT platform or protocol like LoRa and the other to interconnect device inside the home?
Not directly, I guess through, on the sort of the IoT side, through our partnership with Samsung, they have probably the largest ecosystem today. But that's not something that I want to sort of develop on our own as the hubs and capability comes into place from a Wi-Fi connectivity perspective. We want to add them to the network, but there isn't really sort of specific initiatives inside Plume today.
Dean, just very quick, no, it's good. Great to have you, Fari. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I think Fari and the team is going to be here for the full 3 days, right?
I am leaving today, but Bill McFarland is sitting there. He's our CTO. Matej and Bartosz, these guys are really the brain power behind OpenSync. So feel free to talk to them.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Good to see you. All right, we're going to take a break for half an hour. Thanks to Fari.